I don't remember the moment where it was like, da, 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 we are doing a Stronghold fantasy game, and everyone.
That would be amazing.
I don't. Yeah.
To have that on film would just be amazing. Cool. If you could clap for me.
My name is Paul Harris, and I am General Manager at Firefly Studios. When it comes to games, I'm a producer. Stronghold 2 was my first. Whether it was my best, I'm not quite sure. Personally, I'd say the best Stronghold game I worked on, in terms of, from my side, which is production, I would say is Stronghold Legends.
Okay.
Partly because it built on Stronghold 2, so a lot of the systems were in place when we started on Legends. And even though Stronghold Legends had a shorter development cycle as a result, it just meant that we could start from a place where a lot of the economy we just had to tweak a little bit so that it was all up and running very quickly. Obviously there was a load of new units in Stronghold Legends, but they were very different from anything we'd done in a Stronghold game before because they were fantasy. So that was great. The artist enjoyed making the new units. We got to play around with the powers, which was a lot more fun than just standard fighting because things were flying around. There was special effects. We had all the Knights of the Round Table, things like that. Had the special powers where you could drop down kind of instant troops, and Merlin had his fire, his lightning strike thing, which was great. And so it was fun because I guess we got to develop the gameplay almost immediately because a lot of the nuts and bolts were done already. And also I think there was the guys that were working on Stronghold Legends. It was quite a small team because it was kind of we were sort of working off Stronghold 2, but the guys that were working on it were really kind of passionate about it, and so there's a lot of improvements in Stronghold Legends that you can see from Stronghold 2, not just in the gameplay but also just things like the UI. It scales even now perfectly on like large screens, even though back then the maximum was probably like, I don't know, 1080, but now it scales up to 4K, and there's a lot of kind of nice touches in there which weren't they weren't written down anywhere, so no one asked for them. But the team that were working on it just did it because they cared, and they were really into the game and making it the best possible experience for the players. My favourite Firefly moment. Oh, there's so many. It's difficult because it's interesting to look back now, because often you remember, the times where, like, when things are going well, obviously you just kind of you just take those in your stride and you think, oh, this is great. This is the way it should be. So often you remember the things that go wrong. But I do remember, one of the standout moments was we were at it was actually rated to Stronghold Crusader 2, and apologies if I've told this story a million times. But we were at Gamescom, and Nick and I were demoing in the business area, because Gamescom is a nice, quiet, civilized business area. And then there's the 200,000 people in the consumer area. Even though there's about 8 aircraft hangar-sized halls, it's absolutely rammed and nightmarish. But we were demoing in the business area, and then and Stronghold Crusader 2 was being demoed at the Koch Media area on the main show floor. And I think we had one screen or something like that. And then someone from Koch came over to us, found us in the business area, and said, "Guys, can we, just interrupt? Because we've got a problem." And we're like, "Oh no, great, here we go, it's crashing or something." Or and I was saying, there's the queue to play Stronghold Crusader 2 is quite long, and so we need, it's causing a bit of a kind of health and safety issue. That's how we like to think of it. I don't know. There's an emergency down on the floor. And could we get it basically up and running on a couple more screens on their stand? And so, Nick and I were like, yeah, no problem. Off we ran, and we got it. I think it was like 3 screens in the end, but it was cool. It was like really cool to, to see that the level of interest, especially as Crusader 2 came out, about 10 years after, after the original. So, it was great that the demand was still there, and people really wanted to play it, and it was, it was really fun to go down and set up those screens. How has working on Stronghold games changed as a person? Interesting. Not necessarily, as a person. I think, in my role, I have to be quite objective. I have to, we have a lot of ideas. My job is about sifting out good ideas from bad ideas. But then sometimes it's about, you can have a brilliant idea, absolutely brilliant idea, but it, could take a year's worth of. Yeah, and so you've got to make those decisions. You've got to make objective decisions based off, what the project needs, what the company needs, how long the dev cycle is going to take, what resources we've got available. So, and I think a lot of that decision making only happens through experience. So, I feel I'm a better decision maker now than I was when I started, and so I think you learn that's kind of experience is you can only learn that through experience. The reason why I love working at Firefly is because certainly my role, I assume other people experience this, is that whenever we've done a new project, there's always been something slightly different. So I came at the end of Space Colony, then we started working on Stronghold 2, which is a 3D project. Then we did Legends, which was like a project built on an existing project, which was great. So I got it's kind of a slightly different experience. Then we did Dungeon Hero, which is our first console, game, which unfortunately we couldn't actually produce through to the final, but it's still amazing working on a console game. Then it was like Stronghold Kingdoms, so that was like free to play game again, completely different experience from working on a box product game. Yeah. And then also sort of going back to doing a sequel to Crusader was an amazing challenge. So it's a very different challenge. Every game so far has been a different challenge and a different experience, and I really enjoy that. There have been some hard moments. One of the ones I remember, end of Stronghold 2. The Stronghold 2 was quite a difficult project. We kind of bit off more than we could chew with Stronghold 2, in that we made Stronghold, which was like a kind of story-based game with a kind of a multiplayer mode tagged on. Then we did a Crusader, which was basically a skirmish game where we used the skirmish as the story, but there was not much story in there. Yeah. And then with Stronghold 2, we decided to kind of madness is that we decided to then do basically a story mode game with a skirmish mode game, and and even more in there. So it was kind of it was bigger in scope, pretty bigger than we realised at the time. And towards the end of, we were really kind of, up against it towards the end of Stronghold 2. And I do remember, and this is a good inexperienced one for you. So Stronghold 2 first project, never really had to deal with anything like DRM. Yeah. So right at the end we had to, I knew it was on the cards. We had to implement secure on DRM. So it got right to the end, literally, last few days. So all we had to do, you just do this thing to the exe, just stick this, all I know is that I run the exe through this DRM program and it's all done, perfect, protected from piracy, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And so we did final testing on the secure on version, and we were getting a crash. And so, which is fine. Normally, it's fine-ish. Normally, because it's fine. We just load up the debug version, recreate it. If we've got a save game, recreate it, find out what's wrong. So load up debug version, not crashing. Nightmare, absolute nightmare. Because you've got a release version where it's only you have no idea why it's happening. It wasn't 100% reproducible. And so this was, I think, just before Easter 2005, I think.
Okay.
And so I think that was pretty just before Easter. We then spent the whole of Good Friday trying to figure out what was causing this crash. And I think in the end we worked out that the only difference between the previous day's version and the version we're testing was this Securum DRM. And it turned out that basically DRM had wrapped itself around, I think it was a pig farm. I don't know, that's the story anyhow. A pig farm, some bloody pig farm, whatever. Yeah. And so, yeah, every now and again, obviously this code would somehow get accessed and the game would crash.
Those pig farms, huh?
And so pretty much Easter 2005 was ruined looking for a crashing pig farm.
Yeah, great.
Well, Stronghold is about castles. That is absolutely key to Stronghold game is it's a castle game. That's how I view it, I don't think of it as an RTS game or as a builder. I think of it as a castle game. So I think castles are absolutely key. That's what makes Stronghold, different from everything else. And so, in the future, what I'd like to see is it to become more of the ultimate castle game. And hopefully this will happen before 10 years time. But what I'd like is literally to be able to design a bespoke castle. So change texture of the walls, be able to choose what kind of stone you make your castle out of.
Okay.
I'd like different pieces. I'd like not just at the moment kind of for simplicity, because it's an RTS and stuff, you need a certain degree of kind of very quick to select what you want and place down. So maybe this isn't a traditional Stronghold game. Maybe this is a kind of an offshoot where it's literally a castle builder. But I'd like loads of pieces. I'd like you to be able to have a million bespoke pieces so you could build whatever kind of castle you want. I'd like change the heights. I'd like you to brilliant. You can actually maybe you can mod it yourself. Maybe you can add maybe you can wallpaper it. I don't know. You can add a nice 70s brown stripy wallpaper to it if you really fancy. But that's what I want. I want Stronghold, or a version of Stronghold, to have to be like the definitive castle builder. Yeah, it reminds me of when we did Stronghold Legends after Stronghold 2, in that it's by going to a new setting, it's re-energizes the team. It gives us something new stuff to research, which obviously new stuff to build, and opens up new gameplay possibilities that we couldn't do, based off the technology of the settings of Stronghold 3 or Crusader 2. Stronghold 2 was our first 3D game, so we needed a 3D engine, and a lot of technology, new technology was needed in order to do Stronghold 2. So I remember the first few weeks of Firefly. I remember having a meeting with Eric and Simon. I remember Simon talking about one of the key concepts of Stronghold 2, which was the idea that your castle would carry from mission to mission.
Okay.
Which is, normally you play a mission, that's it, next mission was, whatever, it was a fresh start. Whereas Stronghold 2, one of the key aspects of it was that your play carried through. So, what you did you could replay it again completely differently, and you would, still bring that through, and which was a great feature. Bit of a nightmare at times, because obviously we didn't know what players were going to do, and sometimes, you could, in theory, get stuck. But it was cool. It was one of the early concepts I remember right from the start that was mentioned. I can't remember if there's obviously other things I don't remember. It's like the idea of the new systems in there, things like the gong and the rats and the crime, and the idea was just to expand on, the original Stronghold, add more of the castle life, because players really liked the working villages, peasants going about their business. So we wanted to add more of that into there. And then there was also I also remember a key element was the castle cutaways. Yeah. So in Stronghold 2 you can I think you mouse over areas of the castle, and you can see the lord going about his daily business. So again, it was the idea of capturing the daily life of a castle, of the lord. And that was really we really tried to drill down into that for Stronghold 2. When you've made something as successful as Stronghold and Crusader, there's the great thing is there's loads of feedback from players. What it is so a lot of it is we collated what we thought people liked about Stronghold Crusader, and one of the things that came through was very much the personality that the game had. So the fact that there was peasants, they said things, they, when you clicked on them, they had information about them. And that was kind of that's what we defined as castle life. So a lot of that obviously feeds back into how Simon was designing Stronghold 2, and very much that the way certainly the Stronghold games work is that Simon is comes up with a lot of ideas, but then Eric's very good when it comes to systems and things like that. So really kind of like turning those ideas into workable kind of solutions in the game that really fit with the gameplay. So they work very well together. In that Simon has got loads of ideas, but Eric can take those and like kind of pinpoint which ones really work well in the game. And so that's kind of has always been the process. But it's also obviously with the more sequels and things we make, the more feedback we look at from the community, and try and sift out the good ideas that the community come up with, and add them into our games. I think Stronghold 2, there is an element of we just had ideas and we just kind of went for it. We just everything. I don't remember necessarily cutting back on too much stuff in Stronghold 2. I think that's based off the success of Stronghold, the success of Crusader. That kind of the confidence we had in delivering a Stronghold experience, I think meant that we were confident. I think what we didn't take into account was reinventing, having to start again with an engine takes up quite a bit of the chunk of the development time. So say you got Stronghold, I guess took like sort of 2 years to make, and then Crusader's a year. We probably then had another 2 years to make what essentially was kind of Crusader plus Stronghold, when really we needed probably 3 years at the end. So towards the end, I think we did. I hate to say the evil word of games development, but we did crunch towards the end of Stronghold 2 quite a lot. I think with Stronghold Legends, I don't think we thought too much about how the Stronghold community would react to a fantasy version of Stronghold. I think we kind of, it was our focus was on the Stronghold gameplay. So the Stronghold gameplay has very strong foundations, and then we wanted to build a different experience onto that. So at that time, I know we considered just doing a Stronghold Crusader 2. Based off, we did Stronghold and then Crusader, so natural thing to do Stronghold 2 and then Crusader 2. But we kind of felt like, I think, after 3 medieval Stronghold games, I think the team was kind of itching to do something slightly different. And I think, for our sanity as well as, to give players something different to do, I think that's why we chose the fantasy side of it. Also because, great thing about fantasy is that you can break out of the shackles of reality that and so we especially it was great for the artists. They get to got to sketch out some whatever they wanted, concept ideas. I don't know, I guess when you're a programmer it's probably not that different to be honest, programming one thing and the next, but the good thing about, I guess, for the programming side, you could do more effects and things like that, more more graphical stuff that
sure.
that you can't really do in a sort of more gritty medieval game. So I think it was just the sanity for giving Simon something a bit different to design. The whole team just to work on something a bit new and fresh, and we thought it was also good for players to just play something different. I don't remember the moment where it was like, da-da-da, we are doing a Stronghold fantasy game, and everyone.
That would be amazing.
To
have that on film would just be amazing.
No, I don't remember really any major, kind of announcement that we were doing a fantasy version of Stronghold. I think it just sort of, I think Simon probably had it in his mind, and I guess approached. We started concepting stuff. Quite often these things happen, gradually. Concepts come about, and the kind of flesh out some of how the game might look. Kind of in those early stages. But I think everybody was very accepting of the idea. It was interesting. Kind of we needed re-energizing probably especially after Stronghold 2. After the crunch sort of Stronghold 2. I think we needed something a bit fresh. I think it was the aim I think in Legends was recognizable, or so it was trying to take the history element of a Stronghold game and combine that with fantasy. So it was designed to be, it was obviously King Arthur, there was obviously Vlad Dracul, so it was like, it was how to have 3 different factions but also sort of vaguely tied to history, which so it was very deliberate that it was as close to kind of real history as possible. Well, obviously being fantasy, but so that was very deliberate. I think most of the stuff that we had in there, I think went into the final game. I think how we handled dragons, I think changed over kind of the course of the project, and I think in the end, the solution we came to was a bit like the idea of in Command and Conquer. Towards the end, you build like a kind of nuclear bomb like nuclear missile kind of thing, and the idea that you would build up to it, and then you'd place one, then kind of players would it was a focus. It was designed to be a player's built a nuclear bomb, and so either you're going to get nuked or you've got to get over there and destroy it, and that's very much the dragons were designed to be the nuclear bomb element of the game. And so but I think that that kind of that very much changed over the project, how we handled dragons, because they were such a huge thing, and literally in every way. They took it. And I remember actually with the dragons, we had a lot of debate about how high they should fly. It was an odd problem in that too high and it kind of blocked out, and you couldn't really it was all about the camera angles, like how far out you zoomed and stuff, and then that obviously the further out you zoom, the more you're potentially you're drawing on screen, so there's technical issues, and then there's also how much space they covered up as well. It was all kind of stupid little kind of technical design issues that we had to do with the dragons.
And was it just the dragons that proved sort of technical issues, or were there any other units or sort of should I say tales from the trenches?
Well, I think because Legends we ironed out a lot of the issues that were in Stronghold 2, because in Stronghold 2 we didn't have much time to optimize it at the end of the project. It was only kind of subsequent patches that we ironed out a few really stupid kind of performance hits, and so Legends was built off that, so it was in a pretty good state generally. But then we added some nice kind of, not necessarily technical stuff, but some like nice tools that kind of helped like make it look a bit clever and things like that. Personally, I like to think this is my invention, but the stupid when you're doing formations, you made a formation, then you can drag the arrow direction of where you want the formation to point.
Was that your handiwork?
Well, that's the way I remember it. But this is like 15 years ago, but there was nice touches in there which we could do because we had the time, because we were building off, a formation system was already in there. But certainly at the start of Stronghold Kingdoms, it was very, very experimental. We didn't really, we didn't have any expectations for the game whatsoever. We were building the technology just from, kind of how we thought, we could do it. I think it started off using, I assume it was an Adobe product, but I think it was Adobe Flex or something. It was like the kind of server side, and then it was like the client side would have been like Flash or something like that. So we explored that, but we just kind of, after I think not too long into development, it was clear that basically it just couldn't handle it. So we had to kind of switch our technology again, and in the end we went with kind of Microsoft WinForms, which is if anybody's played the PC version, is quite obvious. It's kind of got a sort of very Windowsy style interface and things like that. So so there's lots of technical challenges, but also in terms of the server technology, we had never done a game where we had to connect to a server, and so we had servers set up in a data center in the UK, so in London, and we literally, because I do, my background before Firefly was in IT, so I went down to the data center and was installing servers in a rack. I think we had one world obviously set up at the time, which meant so we had 5 servers in a physical rack in a data center in London. The biggest change is with how we handle the servers. At the time, it's crazy to think back now that that was, so one world is 5 servers essentially.
Yeah.
So if we had to open another world, that would have meant ordering 5 servers from, at the time we used Dell hardware, so which would have been, I don't know, might have been a week for those to arrive. They'd had to go to the data center. I'd have had to go to the data center. I'd have had to set it up all, that, which would have taken probably a day. Then we would remote into those servers and do all the configuration, things like that, and obviously test it. So the whole process would probably have been kind of 10 days or something. And we had never even really knew about cloud computing then. Someone mentioned to us like you should have a look at Amazon Web Services, and so we're like, okay, whatever, we'll have a look. And it was just unbelievable, because let's take about the example of when we launched on Steam. We were one of the first free-to-play games on Steam, so our visibility, we had a very high visibility on Steam, and as a result, a lot of players came in as a result of us being on the, I think, well, there's that kind of the top whatever list. There was only 3 games on the list, and we were one of them. So it was amazing. Most developers can dream of being on a top 3 list. So
how long were you on that sort of front page for?
Quite a long time, yeah. Quite, we were right at the start. As in when we were talking to them, they hadn't launched their free-to-play section yet.
Oh, really?
It was like, I can't think, it was like Star Trek Online, I think. There was, I don't know, there was a few, there's kind of, but it was great. It was amazing for us, but it was, it was quite slow, the other games coming on board. Certainly on Steam, it was perfect. Obviously, Stronghold's got a great following, so, they found us via Steam. And then also, I think, just, I've always said that, free is a very attractive pull for most people. So, and it was a very new concept then. We'd heard people only really knew about free-to-play games because of things like Tribal Wars, but I don't even know how many people even knew about that. Or it was just this kind of this model that was being big in Asia, and but it probably wouldn't catch on over here. And so we made that decision quite early to try it out, because of the success of Tribal Wars, and then obviously Steam, so they embraced it as well, and then it was the perfect. One of the great things I remember with Stronghold Kingdoms was that obviously once we had the game up and running, we had to do some testing on it, and so we did sort of some alpha tests with the community, and that was great. There was it was a really, because we at the time the only community we had was Stronghold fans, so we pulled in a lot of the testers from Stronghold and Crusader, so ones that we'd used years before. We contacted them, we got them involved, and so there was a really nice kind of small test group right at the start of Stronghold Kingdoms, and they really they seemed to really enjoy the gameplay, which is it's quite interesting because it was quite different from a Stronghold game.
Yeah.
But so as long as they could get used to the change of it not being real time, and get used to the idea that you've got longer times to build things, and they were really into it. So it was a really good start to testing Stronghold Kingdoms. The free to play was obviously, because when you're testing it, it's fine. There's no one's paying for anything. Even certainly in the early tests, we didn't actually have a kind of proper monetization system in there. Things like we didn't actually have strategy cards in at the early alpha tests, so they came later. And then, but there's always going to be a bit of resistance to that. But the whole point about the tests, although it was to is to balance that out so that it's not it's both generous but also not too generous. It's that finding that middle ground. So, and Stronghold players are obviously, they're used to buying a game. Yeah. So, but it was a very different. It was a very new model at the time. So I think there was a general resistance to free to play. Always thought that over the years, sort of the younger players are much more comfortable with the free to play. People of my age, obviously, are far too set in our ways to change the way we like buying games and then having all the content. Whereas I think as sort of generations, they got used to playing free games on their mobile phones. Often they just that's the model they expect. So there's not so much resistance there.
Absolutely.
I think you'd be surprised by how much Stronghold Kingdoms was a very clear vision right from the start. I think lots of games, they kind of there's a sort of a seed of an idea, and then it develops over time. Whereas I think with Stronghold Kingdoms, it was very clear at the start how we wanted it. We kind of had a blueprint of tribal wars, but it was also very the idea of having a parish and a parish leader, a steward, was a very was right in there right at the start. I do remember at the start there was an idea that you'd almost have like a parish council, so there'd be kind of like almost different roles within that for different people. Yeah. But I think we concluded in the end that that's quite hard for you might have one successful if people are super organized, they'll get that working, but it's kind of it takes a lot of organisation, and more than more than a sort of a casual group of strangers could normally get together. So, but the idea of your parish and having a steward, and then having a province and a county, and becoming the King of England, or Queen of England, obviously, was very key to the concept right from the start. And I remember actually at the start of the parish was such a great concept, because players would come in and they'd immediately have a bond with other players, which I think was really key to that kind of early, that sort of now it's very much the idea of having like factions and things. All successful free to play multiplayer games generally have a faction system in there, whereas what was great about the parish system is almost like it brought people together immediately, and encouraged you to talk to other players, especially in the really early days when no one really had any idea what they were doing. It was a really good way of just helping other players through the system. There's a really nice feel to the community was very much there to help other players.
Be sincere. Come on, you can do it. You can do it.
No, the Stronghold community are fantastic. I'm always in awe of whenever I watch videos of Stronghold community playing our games, I'm always in awe of how amazing they are at playing our games, how much better I am they are than me. I learn a lot from watching, videos of our fans playing our games, and that's great. It's great because when you're developing a game, you tend to play it in a specific way, or you're generally playing with specific people, so you get used to their strategies. Whereas by watching the community, you can really you can see some really skilled players, how they play the game, different strategies they use, what the things we need to focus on to allow those players to to be able to use different strategies in the future.